I was born in '85. Mum used to drag me to the pageant, and then I looked forward to Dad picking me up, and it was probably the thing that I looked forward to the most was going to the Grand Prix with Dad. Yeah, I guess it's pretty cool to think that we'll be driving, a Formula One car from that era around the streets of Adelaide.
Oh yeah, I could not imagine not riding a bike. I've done that since I could walk, and until I can't walk, I'll be riding.
It hasn't got the full horsepower when it was in its heyday, but it's not far from it. So it doesn't have paddle shift, it doesn't have all the sort of the mod cons as what we do see now.
Where in the world can you actually stand in the street and you see the police escorting Formula One cars? I mean, it was fantastic.
Welcome to the motorsport city of Adelaide. And welcome to the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. It's a city of 1.2 million people and the most registered classic sports cars per capita in the world, making it the perfect home for a festival such as this. A festival that has evolved into one of the finest of its type in the world.
It's quick bursts of, amazing, spectacular Ferraris like the FXX that we can hear in the background here, and then the next session might be some heritage touring cars. It's what it's all about, is using the car the way it was built to be used, hearing the car, at maximum revs and driven hard. Thank you all for coming.
The event precinct is in the heart of the city at the old Formula One track. The Shannons Adelaide Rally, held over the first 3 days of the festival, kicks things off. A tarmac rally on some of the greatest rally roads in the hills that overlook the city.
Well, we kick off for another year with the Shannons Adelaide Rally in partnership with the Sporting Car Club. I think from last count they were up to close to 280 vehicles, so 60 odd in the Prima Tour, and then just over 200 in the Shannons Adelaide Rally. Almost 40 short impact stages measure the field across various categories over 3 days. Each day, the course takes a different route through the gorges, ravines, and rolling hills lined with orchards and vineyards. Australian driving champ Craig Lowndes finally gets his chance to drive in the Shannons Adelaide Rally.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's the first time I've taken part in it. To drive the Ferrari, be the first car through, it'd be really nice.
The leisurely drive in the Prima Tour in one of the world's best sports cars, just what the doctor ordered after an arduous supercar season.
It's a GT C4 Ferrari, and it's beautiful. It's really nice.
A new car that they've released is a brilliant looking car that matches its great looks with some exceptional performance.
A sexy four-seater that packs a knockout punch from its 600 horsepower turbocharged V8.
It's the first time that my wife and I have actually navigated and driven together.
Day one of the Adelaide Rally hosts 10 special stages and 23 competitive kilometres, including the unforgiving Colin Grove Hillclimb in the famous Barossa Valley wine region. The field heads back into the Adelaide Hills for the day's last stages. The entrance in the Prima Tour, stopping at Deviation Road Winery for lunch, while the rally entrants try to stick to the slippery tarmac on a wet day one. The classic competition has 3 real chances vying for the top spot on the leaderboard. The RX-7 of Adam Kaplan, the experienced Matt Selly, and Oscar Matthews, a local lad, who shocked the rally world in last year's event, finishing 3rd after giving higher spec cars a run for their money.
Last year, we ended up being stuck in 3rd gear for about the last 3 stages or so, and no clutch, which was pretty difficult. Yeah.
The Adelaide Rally is comprised of several categories, depending on model and specs of vehicles entered. There are competitions for outright honours in classic and modern. The modern section is for cars built since 1985. The classic and modern challenge competitions sees vehicles speed limited to 130 km per hour. It's all about maintaining good corner speed, and fastest time wins. The regularity section is for cars of all makes and models, who are all aiming to reach the end of each stage in a prescribed time. The team who gets closest to that time on most of the stages will win. The host of the Motorsport Festival, the Sporting Car Club of South Australia, also own and operate the Collinggrove Hillclimb, a thin ribbon of tarmac with a 9% grade. It's less than a kilometre in distance, but provides a challenge with zero room for error on each of the twists and turns. The field attempting 2 separate runs to the top of the hill.
It's good to come out here and let our hair down. Obviously standing here at Collinggrove, and yeah, it's part of the day where you get to kind of have a little bit of a dip. And you know, I'm here in a McLaren 675 LT. It's a crazy amount of power, big carbon brakes, so it's a bit of a luxury compared to what I'm used to. Adelaide, I reckon, has some of the best roads, and then I get to bring one of the best cars along, so it's good fun. The car turns heads, and yeah, this year we've upped it with a bit more power in the McLaren.
Following the hill climb, the Prima Tour have a gentle run back from the Barossa to one of the many vineyards nestled in the hills.
You know, it's fantastic operating in the Adelaide Hills. I enjoy motorsport myself, so it's always good to be, you know, hosting motorsport events. We've got a paella lunch going on for the Prima Tour, which is always good fun. Some sensational cars have come through. And it's a bit like the Tour de France, good roads, good driving, good vistas. Some people liken it to Tuscany. I think it's just a sensational, you know, part of the world to cruise around.
Adam Kaplan made his intentions very clear right from the get-go, setting some blistering times, leaving his rivals bewildered.
1985 Series 3 Mazda RX-7, running a huge 13B turbo. Plenty of horsepower. Came off the dyno with about 427 rear wheel horsepower just a couple of days before the event. So horsepower definitely not our issue. Traction definitely our issue.
Kaplan set the fastest times across each of the first 3 stages.
A little bit less traction than I would have liked, and rear-wheel drive certainly makes it a bit exciting, really. Yeah. Coming back through Chain of Ponds, Millbrook stage was actually really fun. As wet as it was, I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah. Although, you know, hoping for a bit drier weather for the rest of the week.
I followed the peak hour of power parade through just after the green light corridor. There was a sea of people that had clearly just watched the parade, that had turned around and were walking towards Goodger Street, and from about a kilometre back, it was just a constant stream.
I think that's it's quite amazing to see how enthusiastic people are here in Adelaide about motor racing and motor cars. And I drove the Enzo FXX in, and yeah, quite amazing to see the line of people along the sides of the streets.
I knew it was going to be big, and it certainly was. It was absolutely jammed.
Yeah, it was awesome actually. Like, there was heaps of people out on the streets, and then yeah, even more in Goodger Street. So definitely a really cool experience.
I think that it was our little Race to the City film that probably really kicked things off for us this year, or certainly expanded our reach and exposure, and that's gone global.
Like, oh look, I got the guys to do it. I said, you know, a couple of the boys I race with, Slady and Waters, I said those boys will love to be involved.
Pretty wild, to be honest, to be allowed to do this from, you know, the government, the police, whoever else that are involved in letting us take some pretty amazing Formula One cars around the streets on a quiet Wednesday night is really cool.
So I'd like to think that everyone that's into motorsport has seen that by now. I mean, the weather's amazing. We've got some beautiful days here. The crowd is just flowing in waves. It's literally a smorgasbord of motorsport, so there's something for everybody.
As has become tradition at the festival site, Adelaide BMW takes centre stage with a host of head-turning models from their historic range. The Shannons Adelaide Rally 2 sees BMW with their own tour packet featuring some of the most impressive new M models to hit the roads. Category S of the Shannons Rally comprises of vehicles that don't fit within the technical regulations for outright contention. International driver Frank Kelly headlines this category and has developed a cult following around the world.
The only really word you could use to describe my driving is erratic. It's erratic at best, I know that, and I've tried to change it for years and I've now just given up. So I embrace it and enjoy it. It's a gravel car. It's not really set up for tarmac, but did a few tweaks to it after Rally SA, and it seems to be handling well, and put in stiffer springs all around, sway bar in the front, and lowered the ride height, and it's doing what it says in the tin. I'm sort of behaving myself, so everything's going okay. As a throwaway comment, I'd say that the road liaison sections were beautiful heading to the gravel stages, and it would make a good rally. And he says, funny you come to mention that. And next thing we found ourselves agreeing to come and do Adelaide, so it's been a great adventure.
Rally legends Neil Bates and Coral Taylor are in rare company in Australian motorsport. But this is their first tilt at the Adelaide Rally, and they are entered in their own museum piece in the modern section.
The last rally we did in this car was 21 years ago. This is a car that we used to win this 95 Australian Rally Championship and also Target Tasmania in 95, so it's a car that's very dear to our hearts.
The Bates Celica was in a duel with Ben Calder in a 2000 Evo. Bates and Taylor more than a second per kilometre faster through the first 7 stages. On special stage 8, Calder and Glennie hit their stride. Bates and Taylor recording a time of 1 minute, 31.5 seconds. Calder and co-driver Steve Glennie recording exactly the same time across 2.76 kilometres. On the last stage of the day, Calder was faster than the rally veterans, but by just 0.6 of a second. After winning stage 4 in the classic competition, Oscar Matthews was having trouble keeping up with the RX-7 of Adam Kaplan. Matt Selly's 1985 Artger also struggling to stay on pace. By the end of Leg 1's 10 stages, Kaplan had opened up a whopping 28.3 second lead. The gap between Matthews and Selly now less than 4 seconds.
We've got Oscar Matthews, I think only a couple of seconds behind us. He's very quick and he knows these roads very well. The car's very well set up.
Day 2, and the field heads north of Adelaide to the Malala motorway, nestled in the wheatfields north of Adelaide. It's the former home of the Australian Grand Prix in 1961, and then the touring car rounds for many years after that. Starting at Malala for 2 stages, the field then heads back into the hills for another 6 stages northeast of the city, stretching to the 178 hectares of Millbrook Reservoir, the main water supply for Adelaide's eastern suburbs. A simple Gymkhana-style course is first, ahead of 2 timed laps of the historic racetrack. Kaplan was again fastest on all stages over leg 2, but the battle to watch was for second and third between Oscar Matthews' Corolla and Selly's Artka. The pair trading precious seconds back and forth on each stage. After the last stage of the day, Matthews held second place by just 5 seconds, setting up a thrilling final leg. Simon Gunston was also in the mix in his 1971 Ford Capri, just a couple of seconds back. Behind Gunston, there were a fleet of 17 cars vying for a top 10 finish. In the modern competition, Neil Bates carried a 17.7-second lead into day 2 over Ben Calder. And other than the Malala circuit, Neil Bates was quickest on all stages, extending the lead to almost 28 seconds after stage 18. David Heaton, in a 2016 Ford Focus RS, was holding third place comfortably, but the gap to Calder in second place was sitting at a full 2 minutes. As the cars return to the city, they head past the Adelaide Oval, renowned as one of the world's best stadiums. This impressive venue pairs the old ground's proud history with cutting-edge modern design. Nestled right in the heart of the city, it's just a short stroll from the Riverbank precinct and the laneway cafes and bars Adelaide has also become famous for.
I mean, what better to share it amongst people like this? You know, suddenly we speak the same language. Whether you go to Australia, whether you go to Ireland, we speak the language of motor cars and motor racing, and it's absolutely wonderful.
It's great to be able to obviously have an opportunity to drive a couple of Formula 1 or ex-Formula 1 cars. To see them still active and still driving around, I think that's probably the best thing, and I'm sure people appreciate that when you're walking around here.
The car ran in the 1989 Adelaide Grand Prix. It was driven by De Cesaris. He spun the car twice in the first corner, and that was the end of the race for him. So I'm back here with the car. I'm really looking forward to it.
Andre is a great example of a real enthusiast that loves the event, wants to just take part.
I've always had this dream, you know, to own a Formula 1 car, at least to drive one.
There have been a few problems in getting the car here. The port that it was due to be shipped out of got hit by a typhoon in South Africa and wiped out the port, and in fact a number of containers were tipped over, ships were overturned. Luckily the container that had his car wasn't one of them.
But 20 minutes from now we're on, and I hope at least I'll make it further than De Cesaris around the first corner. So it was fantastic. I had to learn to drive it. I was a GT racer, but after many efforts and many laps, you know, it became more and more natural, and I'm an amateur driver, but I love to drive it. We still have a little gearbox problem. You know, at the end there, you could see I was backing off, but I'm probably within 1.5 seconds of what I can do here.
Dunlop Super 2 driver Josh Keane has the privilege of driving the Arrows A21, a car that Mark Webber first tested for Formula One back in 2000. Screaming to 18,000 RPM, it is a crowd favourite. Each demonstration session on the shortened F1 track is timed, and after session 1, V8 supercar driver Cam Waters sets the fastest time of 44.7 seconds. Session 2, and Tim Slade in the 1994 Footwork Arrows accepted the challenge. His time over a second faster than Waters, and brilliantly setting a new lap record of 43.0346 seconds.
The Shannons Adelaide Rally and the Shannons Prematur are a very important part of our event, mainly because that gives manufacturers an opportunity to take part in the event. They do that through the manufacturer tour packets, and there's quite a number this year. That's a big growing part of our event. It gives manufacturers an opportunity to get in touch with their customers in a sort of a more intimate environment, but an environment which is really emotive, where they're excited about their cars and they can see new models demonstrated.
Adelaide and South Australia has a passion for motorsport, so this year we stepped up from having a few cars in it to a team of 20 Audis driving around the rally. From a TTS, we've had an S3, we've had half a dozen RS3s, RS6, a few R8s, TTRS, so just a real cross-section of the Audi Sport brand. Every person that's driven those cars have just loved every minute of it, so that's when we get some genuine enjoyment. It's not often we get the opportunity to give something back to our customers, and this gives us that chance.
Year on year, we're seeing manufacturers up the ante in their VIP areas, and so the competition isn't just on the track. There's a little bit of competition off track in amongst those marquees. There's a lot of glamour, there's a lot of unique experiences. Some of them have got sparkling masterclasses. There's one by Deviation Road Winery in the Aston Martin VIP area this weekend, and then there's others that have got Group B cars as centerpieces, and some of the decor and the theming within the marquees is absolutely amazing.
I was unfortunate to meet a guy named John Bow about 10 years ago, and he told me to get rid of all my road cars and buy race cars so he can drive them, and I don't know what happened. I think I did that.
I do love this car, yeah. I mean, it's probably the oldest F1 car here at this Adelaide Festival, but it's still beautiful to drive. It's lovely. It's just an analogue car, like it's in the 70s. It's 42 years old, 43 years old, so it's got quite good grip because it's got big tyres. It's got a beautiful engine, which Cosworth made this engine from sort of 67 onwards. It's quite fast, but it's not fast by today's standards, but it's fast. Fast by my standards, let me tell you. It's got a nice gear shift, none of this paddle shift, wimpy stuff. It's a band's car.
When the Adelaide Grand Prix left town, it left behind one of the event's longtime photographers, John Lem, that now relishes photographing F1s on the track once again.
I did all the GPs in Adelaide. I'd only done one GP before that, which was the British Grand Prix in 1975. The Prost and Senna battles was always great to watch, but qualifying was probably the best thing to watch. You'd wait till Senna put it on pole right at the end of the session. But they were the best years, I think. Yeah, Thierry Boutsen in the rain here in '89, that was, except for the fact that you get wet, you get brilliant photos out of the rain. Also, the things that were on with the Grand Prix, not just the racing, the events that went on around the place, and it really launched the cafes in Adelaide. Oh, fantastic, yeah, it brings back a lot of memories like that, yeah.
While the Adelaide Motorsport Festival pays tribute to the city's F1 days, the thundering V8s of the Adelaide 500 replaced the screams of F1 engines around Victoria Park 20 years ago. Fans love the off-track action too, especially the concerts that light up the stage at this opening round of the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship.
I think all the guys that get into these old cars, we're privileged that we can that we've got them, and look, I'm for getting people to sit in them and kids in them, and you can see all their faces light up. You got to share these cars. These cars have got to be driven. Bugger to museums and bugger them, being pampered. They were race cars, for God's sake. They have to be raced.
Yeah, I mean, you really want to do it, bring it out. I mean, this sat in a museum for 30 years, which was good, it was preserved, but it's better to be out here where people can see it and hear it, and I get to drive it, so it works for me.
So this year we're celebrating Ferrari's 70th anniversary at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, and we've got some brilliant cars here like the 599XX, the FXX that Craig Lowndes is driving a couple of times.
The FXX is powered by a commanding V12 engine delivering over 800 horsepower. The gearbox is straight out of the Ferrari F1, minimising gear change times to under 100 milliseconds. And its aerodynamic design produces downforce rarely seen.
I've owned lots of other heritage touring cars and other Sierras, and I just look for an iconic Sierra, and this is the one. Yeah, well, it actually won the support race here in Adelaide for the Australian Grand Prix in 1989, so it's got a lot of significance for this actual event. Yeah, JB's going to do some laps in it.
I don't know what to expect. It's like a bit like meeting up with an old girlfriend after 30 years, or nearly 30 years. So she may be beautiful, but she may be not. Honestly, I truly expected it to be difficult, but it was just fantastic. I loved it. They put the checkered flag out. I might have done something stupid. I was getting so like, wow, it was just fantastic.
It's a very, very historic car. It's one of the 4 TWR XJSs, so Tom Walkinshaw racing cars, built for the 1984 European Touring Car Championships. We found it in a summer barn up in Aberdeen in Scotland, far up north near the North Sea there. We were very, very lucky to come across it because there's only 4 of them, so we were just Johnny on the spot. It's still totally original, it's got most of its original paint, a lot of its original nuts and bolts. As it ran and as it won a lot of its events, it's a Bathurst 1000 winner. For me to sort of be guiding it through this particularly tricky concrete canyon here is it's a massive responsibility, so we'll just drive with due care.
In Category S of the Shannons Adelaide Rally, Craig Van Diemen and Nick Strijkhuizen were also trading stage wins over day 1 up until stage 10, when Nick Strijkhuizen's 2008 GTR struck trouble, handing Van Diemen's Evo 25 seconds, allowing him to open up a 36-second lead. Strijkhuizen meant business on day 2, paring back the bulk of the time, 7 seconds faster than the Evo 8 through 3 kilometres of special stage 16. Going into day 2 in Category S, Frank Kelly was 42 seconds from the lead in second place. Kelly, with his self-confessed erratic driving style, saw him creep further behind over a minute from first place by the end of day 2.
3 left, 80 and the 4 left, watch it.
The regularity competition was tight, the cars aiming to hit a specific time across each stage by averaging their speed. Across day 1's 10 stages, Graham Modra and Tony Truran had only collected 4.8 seconds in time penalties, but held only a 2-second advantage over William and Kathy Gill. Ben Old and Rhys Gillett were only 1.8 seconds back from them. Day 2 was just as tight, the Gills pulling in front slightly, holding a very slim 1.5-second lead. Modra and Truran were just behind, but Ben Auld having a shocker on stage 18 to fall to 4th spot. Matthew Ball, in a 2003 Mazda RX-8 had snagged third spot.
It's quite amazing to see how enthusiastic the people are here in Adelaide about motor racing and motor cars, and really it's been exciting to see the amount of support that the festival has. And it's not just, you know, the modern cars, and you know, it's the unique cars like the Benetton, or you know, the motorbikes, you know, time attacks. You've got everything and anything here.
This is a 1989 Honda RS 250 GP bike. They're a production Grand Prix bike. It's very difficult to find an outlet these days where you can go and you know, ride your motorcycle fast. Obviously the roads are a no-go zone, so we have to concentrate on the tracks, and by forming a community like the Historic Motorcycle Road Race Register, we get a group of people like-minded.
It's really nice to, you know, to be invited along and bring the bikes to the, you know, normally a pretty much car orientated deal. Get to take some people on the back today and give them a spin and show them like what it's like to sort of probably go faster than what they can by themselves, I'd say. I get a bit of a kick out of it, try and scare them as much as I can, and yeah, they're crazy. I wouldn't get on the back.
Troy loves being on one wheel rather than two. And I don't just mean the back wheel with wheelies, he's quite happy to do endos with people sitting on the back of the motorbike as well.
Sometimes they can't get off, or they hop off and fall over. Yeah, I've seen it all. But you know, of course, there's a bit of a serious side to it. I know within a couple of corners like what they're like and how to sort of take them on board. But yeah, like I say, it's fun.
I can tell you there's absolutely no way I would get on a motorbike with him. No way known to man.
Oh yeah, could not imagine not riding a bike. You know, I've done that basically since I could walk, and it'll be the same on the other side. Until I can't walk, I'll be riding.
What I've got here is a 1979/80 Williams FW07. It was built in 79, raced for the second part of the series, and then went to Argentina at the start of 80, and AJ got pole. And fastest lap and won the race. So this is one of the two cars that he won races in his championship year. Yeah, AJ was never sentimental about the cars. It was like, nah, bring me another. I've had my way with it. Now, bring me a new one. He, yeah, no sentiment with the cars. He just wanted to win, and he had that fighting spirit, and he was able to manhandle these cars around. And you know, and they're pretty heavy cars to drive. These things, yeah, all manual, and every gear shift had to be right, or you blew your box or your engine, and you know, it was tough times, and no radios, no pit stops, just go out, go hard. So, yeah, he was a tough character, and he was able to deliver the goods.
Time attack racing is something that originated in Japan. It was done between a lot of the workshops there. Basically, it's just building absolutely mental cars to very minimum rule specs.
I'm really keen to see what happens in our little challenge where we've got Josh Keane in the FA15 Arrows, Formula 1 car, 600 odd horsepower, 600 odd kilos, against Matt Longhurst, 1000 horsepower World Time Attack car.
Big aerodynamics, huge horsepower, very on the edge. They don't last very long sometimes, but they are very, very fast, and this thing here is quicker than a current Vero supercar.
Just hold it flat, yeah, and try and keep it in straight lines.
Todd Hazelwood driving, you know, arguably probably the best young up-and-coming driver in Australia at the moment. They'll come around the southern hairpin, and when they get on the straight, it's what we call a roll race. They'll both probably be doing about 50 kilometres an hour, and then they hit it, and then it's whoever's behind when you get to the end of the straight, they've lost.
Mate, he's got no chance. It's an F1 car. Like, how's it? What do you think this is? Like, seriously, good luck to him. I'll show you what's talk and what's business.
My money's probably on the Formula 1 car, only because I think it's probably got better gearing coming out of the first gear corner there. But let's see.
One car, and to say you've bet a Formula One car in a Skyline's pretty cool. So I'll take that and put it on my resume. I reckon that was awesome.
Well, I think we beat it both times, like I told you, but I bloody missed a gear, so we almost got him back. We were catching him, but yeah, just not good enough, mate.
The Skyline's got balls, I give it that. Like it's a nuts piece of car. It's pretty cool, and I'm absolutely privileged to drive it.
Built in 1980 by my father and Barry Bray. They were good mates, and I lost my dad about 20 years ago, and I found the car. It came up for sale in a bit of a sorry state, so I was lucky enough to be able to purchase the car, and got in contact with Barry. He was pretty excited that we'd sort of got the car back in the family, and it's just a great opportunity to be able to piece the car back together the way it was, and driving the car's fantastic, but part of it for me is just doing it with your mates and your friends, and coming away to fantastic events like this. The time attack cars obviously are, maybe less restricted, I suppose. Those cars are 1,000, 1,200 horsepower, fantastic aerodynamics and suspension, a lot of computers on them. All of these old cars, there's no computers on them. My car's got an old mechanical Lucas fuel injection on it. Different, but yeah, definitely the time attack cars are a much more modern version of what we ran back in the day.
Each January, right next to the Victoria Park racetrack, hundreds of thousands of fans enjoy the People's Choice Classic Criterium, part of the Santos Tour Down Under. The 40,000 interstate and overseas visitors are part of what is the biggest cycling event outside of Europe. The 7-day event takes in many of the same roads in the Adelaide Hills as the Shannons Rally. Cars set out on the final day heading east and southeast, taking in 11 stages in total. The final stage of the event is at the festival precinct at Victoria Park. Adam Kaplan had dominated the first 2 days in the classic competition and held a minute lead. But lead preservation was not on the cards. The RX-7 ripping through the dry roads in the hills. He was yet again fastest on the first 5 stages. Matthews and Selly were still battling it out for second. Matthews fastest on stage 19, and then Selly fastest on 20. The day's 6th stage, the first run over the 2.97 kilometre basket range stage, and Oscar Matthews gave it everything. He was 11 seconds faster than Selly and 5 seconds faster than Kaplan, enough to cement second place. Early afternoon, and the field stops in Uradla, a country town just 17 k's from Adelaide City. In the regularity competition, William and Kathy Gill were a very reasonable 11.2 over par across the first 2 days, but Modra was close behind. Day 3 was set up to be a close-fought battle. Across day 3, Modra and Truran were accumulating penalties at a rate of knots, falling 1 second back per stage and falling to 3rd, then 4th. The Gills out front were ever consistent. Despite dropping 5.6 seconds on stage 25, they were only missing their prescribed time by 0.3 or 0.4 of a second each time. They eventually finished the rally taking out regularity honours, but by just 6 seconds to Matthew Bull in second, and Ben Auld hanging on to 3rd by just 0.4 of a second. In the modern competition, preservation was not on Neil Bates' mind either. Despite his 28-second lead over Ben Calder, who was comfortably in second place, to 3rd place David Heaton. And across the day's stages, nothing would change. Bates went into the Vic Park stage comfortably in front, with Calder content in second place. And that is the way they would finish, Bates leading from start to finish.
The old 205 was unbelievable, didn't have one problem the whole event, and incredibly happy. It was, to bring a 1994 model car out and compete against the modern stuff and, you know, be quicker than them all was very satisfying.
In Classic, Oscar Matthews had done enough through the day to hang on to second place in front of Matt Selly. Adam Kaplan, along with Bates, had led from go to woe and had driven a perfect rally with Alicia Penny alongside, calling the pace notes.
Out on the stages went really well, and yeah, I think we pulled another 30 seconds on whoever was second, and yeah, did good. Didn't hit anything. It's a good day.
Results remained unchanged on day 3 in Category S. Frank Kelly sitting pretty in third place right to the end.
Remarkably, we didn't even have a half spin. I don't know, must be something we're doing being on the other side of the world and I'm upside down and I'm disorientated. There's something going on there because usually I swap ends at least twice a rally.
Craig Van Diemen and Nick Strakheisen also maintaining first and second to finish their rally in Category S. Almost 300 touring and competitive cars celebrate the end of the Shannons Adelaide Rally.
The event's grown tremendously. It's exceeded our expectations again. I mean, it keeps doing that every year on year.
And the victors celebrate their competition wins with the traditional champagne shower of sparkling wine, made from the vineyards that adorn the course they have just conquered, in celebration of one of the best motorsport festivals in the world.